Well, we went to Gladbrook High School together, and I was a freshman when he had just graduated. And so that first year, between my freshman and sophomore year, he asked me to go to his Methodist church hayride.
I think we went on maybe a hayride or something, and that could be wrong, but I think that's right. And then I remember her at a dance, and it may have been before I actually asked her, but she was a freshman, and I don't know how old. I was either out of school or senior.
And that was my very first car date, and I was very excited about it. And I wore my new pedal pushers and matching shirt, and nobody was home at the time. I saw him turn off of Highway 96 onto the gravel road, so I knew I about had 3 minutes worth. And about that time, I went to the bathroom and my zipper broke on my pedal pushers. And so here I worked for an hour getting just ready, and I had 2 minutes to find a whole new outfit and greet him at the door.
We did that a couple of times, and then we kind of parted, and then it was, I went to work, got out of school, and she finished school, high school. So anyway, I went to this service, and when I got out of this service, I was, I would have been 24 or 5, something like that. And I had a date to go to a movie in Marshalltown. And the gal called me up and said she was sick. So I went to the movie by myself, went to the early one, and then they had a late movie. And when I came out, she and a friend, I think it was Darlene, were walking together. So I stopped and we talked for a little bit.
I was going into the movie in Marshalltown with my high school friend Darlene, and Stan was coming out of the movie all by himself. And he later said that his date kind of backed out on him. But we started chatting a little bit, and the next day he called me and asked me to go to the state fair.
And then the next day, I decided we need to go see if she'd go to the state fair. So I didn't want to do this at home. I was kind of nervous. So I broke into my sister's house in town in Gladbrook, and they weren't home. And I went in and I used their phone to call her. And she said yes. So we ended up going to the state fair, and we went through the Tunnel of Love, and it was that kind of got things started.
That was around Labor Day, and I was leaving the next day to go back for another year of teaching in Minnesota. Went to the state fair, and from then on, we tried to see each other every other weekend or twice a month because it was a long-distance relationship.
And so I was going to college in Marshalltown, and so we would write back and forth, and about every 2 weeks I did go see her, and occasionally she came home, so then we timed it so we got together then. But it was a kind of a long drive, and several times coming home from up there. I know one night I stopped about 6 times, got out, walked around the car, and just to try to stay awake. One time I went through Ames because I wanted to stay on better roads rather than small roads because I'm afraid I'd drive off in the ditch. Anyway, one time it was snowing. I went up there and got to Blue Earth, and the roads were blocked, and stopped and said, you can't get to Fairmont. There's a train stuck in the snow between here and Fairmont. You can't get there. So I took off and went south out of Blue Earth, back into Iowa, went west across Iowa, went north out of some town, and drove right into to Fairmont where she was at. And then one night quite often we'd be up late, 1 or 2 o'clock, and then they had a little hotel there. And I would go to that hotel, and they just had keys laying on the counter. And so I just grab a set of keys and go to the room, and then next morning I'd leave early, and I'd leave them $8 or $9. I think that's all it was. And so that's how our weekend kind of went.
And then on Groundhog's Day of 1969, he asked me to marry him. We were up in Minnesota, and I believe I said yes right away.
One night was up there. It was on Groundhog's Day, I think. And that had been in 69, I guess it was. And we were walking back up to her apartment, and I said, I just kind of wanted to ask you and see what you thought. And if you thought about if you'd be interested in getting married. And she said, well, I don't need to think about it, but yes. So that was the way it went.
We planned on an August 1st wedding. Very exciting. One funny story that I know all of you have heard a million times, but was that I had 4 bridesmaids and my color was coral, and my mom made the 4 bridesmaids dresses. So it was my sister Alice and my college friend and teaching roommate Marge, and then Karen, who had married Brother Craig the same year that we got married in June, and then Claire, who was just engaged to my brother Lynn. So I had bought my wedding dress in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and it cost $125, which was a lot of money back then for my wedding dress, and that included my bridal matching veil too. But Mom made the 4 dresses, and Claire was still living in Missouri, going to college, and Mom sent her the shell of her coral bridesmaid's dress, and just to see how it fit. And back then we didn't have cell phones or anything, so Mom didn't talk anymore to Claire to see how her dress fit. But when she came the night or two before the wedding, Mom said, well, how did your dress fit? And Claire kind of looked blank and said, I didn't receive my dress. I'm sorry. So Mom had to quickly make another dress, use some scrap material because we had taken all that the fabric store had. She had to change from heels to flats to make sure the dress was more, hit the floor a little bit more, and all the pieces parts were behind her little train in the back. Everybody looked beautiful. It was a gorgeous wedding in our church. We had a reception down in the basement with the little squares of ice cream with the wedding bells imprinted on the top, and cake.
And then that fall we were married, and Claire fainted at the wedding, and Bob Weiss caught her, and Grandpa killed a snake outside the church, and we had a picture outside the church, and then here this dead snake was in the picture, and but then there was a chicken in our car. Don Hine had gotten a chicken from Ron Grote, and Richard Reinhardt, my brother-in-law, Betty's husband, he always was lucky about things, and he had some keys in his pocket, and lo and behold, one of the keys fit the car. We had it locked, but he unlocked the car, and they put a chicken in a paper bag, and here this chicken was in the back seat. So then we took off, went to Marshalltown, and we stopped the car wash. They had the car all marked up, so we washed the car, and we turned the chicken loose, and chicken was just kind of walking around there, and a young kid come up, and he said, can I have the chicken? Yeah, you can have the chicken. So he picked up the chicken, and he had the chicken for a while, and pretty soon, here the chicken was walking around again, and the little boy was gone. And then we left and went on to Des Moines for our honeymoon down in Des Moines by Grace Lake. So then we went on to Florida. We stayed in Jackson, Mississippi. Turned out it was an all-black hotel, but it met the criteria. It was $7 a night for that. And we went on down and visited a friend from the service and came back through Daytona. And then I tried to sing. We did a lot of singing, but I could never hit the right notes on How Great Thou Art. And I think we did that about 50 times, trying to get me to hit the right note, but I never could hit the right note. And so so that was our honeymoon, and then we come back, and it was time to go to work.
We didn't have very much money, as an understatement. Back when we got married, we rented our first apartment in Marshalltown for $125 a month in a fully furnished 2-bedroom house with a full basement, including washer dryer. The downside was it was a little bit close to the packing plant, and so sometimes we had to plug our nose from the car into the house, but that didn't happen too much.
Ended up renting a house for $125 down by the packing plant. But it was a nice little house. Anyway, that kind of from there on it was work, work, work.
Stan worked at Fisher Controls / Emerson early on. However, before that, after he graduated from Iowa State, he got a job at Iowa State, and we bought a house in Ames. And we're going to fix it up. It had no kitchen, but Stan likes to build things, and so it was perfect. Price was right. And then, like the next day, he got the job in Marshalltown, and here we had this house in Ames. So the realtor very willingly bought it back, cleared out some of the overgrown bushes, and turned it around and made a pile of money.
We lived in Marshalltown for a while, and then we moved out to acreage north of town, and that's where Ann was born. And I remember we had a nice room. It was a lot of fun seeing Sue get all ready for the baby to come. And then one morning when it was time, she was down on the floor in the living room, and I think we better go talk. No, we're not going. Well, anyway, we finally decided, okay, she said we got to go, and less than an hour later, Ann was here. So anyway, we had some of those experiences, but then we moved from there over to where we live now.
Like a lot of you older ones, probably money wasn't real flourishing back then. We couldn't do things that even some of our married couples could do because we just didn't have the money. Back when we moved into our present place at Gladbrook, Stan's dad, and he dug the foundation, and Stan will probably tell you how much money we had in the bank at that time when we were building our first addition. But you know what? It was great.
Dad and I, like I say, dug the foundation, and it was time, and we set the footing forms, and it was time to get the cement to come. And the cement was going to be about $90, and we had, I think, $110 in our bank account. But prior to that, we'd bought used windows from different places. We had one new window, but we had windows out of houses in Marshalltown, and we had all this stuff bought up ahead of time. And so it was, but anyway, we got the thing built. We tore down the houses and corn cribs, and the house part was built with all used lumber. But I did end up buying some new lumber for the beams. But that was about it.
We were happy, and when Ann and Sarah and Ryan joined our family, that made us even happier. I didn't work until Ryan was in full day first grade, and that worked out really good. I had a wonderful career teaching, and Stan had a wonderful career with what he did, which allowed us to do a lot of traveling outside the country, which I would never have probably been able to do. I guess something that was key to us is to make the best of each day. I got to thank you. The other day kind of stuck with me. They said, we want you to do this certain job because you are a go-getter. And I thought, I usually do kind of complete projects. Stan completes projects once we start it, and that's probably why we have a beautiful cabin on Ponto Lake where I am talking from right now, because especially Stan is such a go-getter and such a talented guy. So I think we make a pretty good team. We're different, but I think we kind of work on each other's differences to make us a better team. So we're thrilled that we made it to 50 years of marriage. We could not be prouder of our family. They've been just inspirations to us, and as well as our grandchildren. And now we're seeing our grandchildren maybe expand a little bit too. So wanted to say thank you to our kids for all that they have done for us. And I better quit before I get too emotional, but love to everybody. I do want to say that without our faith, it would have been a much harder road of our marriage. That with God, all things are possible, and we depended on Him through the thick and thin of our marriage. So we do give God the credit.
Going to church has always been important. When I was in the Navy, aboard ship, there was 5,000 people on the ship. And you go to church on Sunday morning up where the anchor chains are, called the forecastle. There'd be about a dozen, 12 or 15 people there out of 5,000. And it was so pretty on Sunday morning when it was quiet and you were cruising through the water and you could look down through the chain holes and see the water go by. It was really neat. So it's always been important to me, and I think it's been important for us.
And that's kind of actually been the story of our 50 years of marriage, is that Stan works really, really hard, and I just sit back and kind of watch him. So that's kind of been the key to our relationship, is to, I'm kind of fast forwarding here, but to just let him do what he likes to do, and as a benefit, I get to do what I like to do too. So we try to keep our nights spent mostly together, and then during the day we kind of go our separate ways most of the time.
I just want to say happy 50th anniversary, Mom and Dad. It's no surprise that you've gotten this far. I want to thank them for giving me a happy childhood and helping me to become successful in life. And that was really from them teaching me to be a hard worker, and all of us to be a hard worker. And I think anyone that knows them would know that about them. So thank you.
There's so much to appreciate about you, but thank you for being wonderful role models for a marriage, and how to sacrifice and focus on each other while still maintaining your kind of individuality. And so that's been really great. Also, thanks for showing us sacrifice and hard work, and just the importance of family and friends, and sharing the bounty of your hard work with everybody. We are so fortunate to have you, and love you a lot.
Thank you.
So a couple of things that stand out to me about my mom and dad are that they were always there for me, and that they just never hesitated to come support me, whether it didn't really matter what activity. And that's even continued on since I'm an adult, and I can just always count on them. And so that's meant a lot. The other part that stands out to me is how they taught me the importance of people, and kind of putting that above doing, tasks, and always treating people the right way, and always doing the right thing, and putting friends first. I just think they both have a lot of great friends and even family members that they always put a high priority on, and they stay connected with people. And that's something that I've learned from them and really appreciate.
Joyful. Faithful. Loving. Hardworking.
Loving.
Happy. Kind-hearted.
The best. Hi, Grandma and Grandpa. You're the nicest grandparents I ever seen. Bye.
Love you.
Love you.